Hello. Thank you for joining us again for another session for What's in Your Cup. It's actually a regular program we have for Innovis Club, inviting some of our Innovis members to discuss anything very, very light, literally what's in their cup. Today, we're blessed to have someone we've been partnered with for many, many years, and glad to be able to talk to him again, this time virtually, the CISO for DataBank, Mark Houpt. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. It's fantastic to see you again.
It is wonderful to be back and always wonderful to be with my friends at Trend. So yes, absolutely.
I like that word, friends. It's a good start of the week. How was your weekend?
My weekend was splendid until Sunday night, and then had to clean up some messes around the house due to some weather things that were going on. But hey, those things happen, and just like any sort of incident response or disaster recovery at work, we got a plan, we took care of it, and now we're all good, right?
That is good. So you're the disaster recovery master for your job, but also at
There you
home.
go.
It's non-negotiable, right? Okay. We're
Absolutely.
hoping the week will be a little bit more quiet and still for all of us.
Well, I hope so because I'm on the road after today for a couple of days to do some data center assessments and also do some learning for myself as well. So
Oh, that's good. Being on the road is good. So, Mark, the first time I met you, sadly, it was virtual also. This was the time, if you can still remember, we are almost entering a world of unknown, which is the 2020. We're trying to enter the world of COVID. And this is a lot of uncertainty. You were
right.
one of the very few customers who agreed and said, Myla, let's talk about how the world will look like. So, can we talk a little bit about that? Back in 2020, you and I discussed about how can we be prepared for a work of hybrid remote, and we don't know exactly how long would that be. Do you have a recollection of that? And walk me through
I
what were your thought process then.
I do have a recollection of talking about that because talking with you actually set off a lot of wheels that kept spinning as to what we should really be doing and what we should be focusing on with the work from home revolution, I guess we could call it, or maybe just generally the hibernation period. How's that?
Yeah, like that. The revolution I really kind of like too. So, were there
Yeah.
things, I'm just curious, Mark, when we discussed, I still remember that paper we put together, there were certain elements of infrastructure that you predicted very, very well. One is the VPN. You said it's going to be a little bit chaotic. So, looking back, how do you describe what infrastructure really got you and the organization afloat and really steady during COVID? What really helped you got through it?
So infrastructure wise, what really saw a change was people rushed to the cloud. People that were behind in their or maybe I don't know if I'd say behind, but maybe they were taking a little bit more of a steady pace of moving to the cloud. Quickly realized that the infrastructure inside of their data centers that they have inside of their office buildings, or perhaps even within uh, a structured data center like DataBank, they were looking more at, what can we do to get in that cloud? So there was a significant rush to the cloud. People were signing contracts with all the big cloud providers, probably taking less caution, perhaps even less security concerns. They just wanted to get it up there, get it out of the way so that they could address this. Because originally, again, hindsight is always 2020. But when we were in the middle of this fight in 3 years ago at this time in August, we had already thought once that we were going to be able to come out of it by now, and it was continuing to drag on and drag on, and we didn't know how long that was going to last because there were new variants come out. If you recall, back in March of 2020, governments all around the world were telling us, give us 14 days of lockdowns, give us a month worth of time where you stay out of the offices and stay home and hunker down, do that hibernation thing,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back and we'll be roaring back because everybody will be glad to get back into the office and get back to
Mhm.
seeing everyone and so on and so forth. And then when that extended, into April and then into May and into June, a lot of businesses were making very quick decisions, thinking that number one, they need to get space in resources that were out there. They wanted to kind of plant their flag, if you will, in the resources, because there was a concern that there weren't enough resources because the supply chain was being hit starting, about this time 3 years ago. And then also because nobody knew exactly how long this was going to happen or continue to happen and continue to go. And hindsight tells us that we went about another 6 to 8 months, depending on where you're at, maybe even up to a year before people finally did start coming out. But honestly, here we are 3 years later, almost, getting 3.5 years later, getting close to when it first started happening. And we're still dealing with supply chain issues all the way up and down. And whether it's from, simple toiletry type of items to medicines to all these computer items that we're dealing with. And, part of that is because we're also innovating during this period of time. And now we have the hyperscaler or the artificial intelligence revolution, which is compounding some of the resource issues that we have to deal with. But, that's kind of a summary, if you will, of 3 years worth of that.
Yeah. And it's actually good because when you think about it, it's really more or less when we go back. I don't know with you, Mark, but I think it's we sing the same song. When we go back to that memory, it's a memory of resilience, it's a memory of strength. And you've mentioned innovation, right? We were, as an organization, you can't not innovate, right? It was really a playground for innovation, for sure.
Right. Well, when you have uncertainty like that, that opens up in any situation, it opens up opportunities for people to rethink, and also not only for minds to rethink to move forward with new ideas, but it also opens up previously closed minds who are thinking this is the way that we're going to do business and always going to do business. But when all of a sudden these blinders and these boundaries are removed and there's no choice, all of a sudden your eyes become open to, hey, maybe that guy over there that's talking about some crazy ideas 2 months ago is now starting to look like he or she had some pretty smart ideas. Or maybe, hey, I remember that guy had some crazy ideas last year. I'm going to go talk to that person today. How can you think of creatively about getting us through this?
Yeah, that's really, really good. My last question on this topic is, I'm just very curious. A lot of organizations, analysts, industry experts, a lot of technology experts made a lot of predictions during the COVID period of 2 or 3 years, right? Was there any one big thing that was your aha for this one and say, you could have not predicted it will really happen in COVID?
Yeah, let me think. One big thing that we could not have predicted, I would say, quite honestly, that the stay-at-home or the work-from-home revolution would have continued. And I think mostly from the people's response to that. I thought that, especially after, again, 3 years ago at this point, we're about 6 months into it, I thought people would want to rush back into the offices as soon as they could. And so in my mind, I was looking at things, although I was looking at things that they were going to be changing, there were going to be some people, I didn't expect everybody to want to do that. And so what we see here 3 years later in 2023 is that the average rank and file worker, even up into management and in middle management, they still want to stay at home and work, but the senior leaders of the organization are saying, no, get back into the office. And so we're starting to get a little bit of headbutting, and we're starting to get some senior leaders dictate that you'll come back into the office. And I wasn't expecting that type of thing. The other thing I think was that I thought we were going to lay off more people, and there were going to be more people without jobs. But what we ended up having was certain industries had layoffs, but other industries quickly scooped up, especially in the security and the IT world, quickly scooped up those people that were that were laid off and without jobs. And not only that, this is another shocking thing to me, was not only that, they were scooped up at higher rates, which created this churn in a lot of our environments where, people were realizing, hey, if I'm without a job, the next job is going to be a higher paying job. So I'm willing to quit and go relax and take an extended vacation for 2 or 3 months and re-enter the job market. And so I think the mentality and we could get into that even more so, which actually plays into security, because we always have to look at insider threats and what people's psychology is in regards to security. But really, the whole revolution of not only going home, but now also the people that are quietly quitting, the people that are working two jobs and not letting the other job know about the other, and things along those lines, are now seeing that pendulum swing backwards towards the middle, where people are getting caught. We're having new companies come out that are building new security tools that will allow companies to be able to collect the data on people that are doing those kinds of things. So it's an interesting space of what we've seen over the past couple of years.
It's really, the dynamics have really changed, not just necessarily for organization, but as you said, for employees like you and me, right? So there's fluidity in the last 3 years. You can be omnipresent, right? But now there's a parameter we need to work on that it's really hard to come back to, right? I agree with you. So, I think one of the things that we're blessed and lucky is that the cybersecurity business, the business that you're in data management infrastructure, has definitely survived, right? I think it's something that we're almost very grateful for. Right?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm in this business, because I've told my wife 100 times that we don't ever have to worry about being without a job, more than a couple of days, because there's always something out there. There's so few security professionals, and so many attacks, and so many things going on. And there's so many companies that are also willing to swap out their current teams for new teams when things happen, and unfortunately blame the old teams and allow the new teams to fix the problem, probably with the same tools and same mindset. But that's definitely a blessing of being in the security field, is that there's plenty of work to do, and the people that are causing the work are not going away anytime soon. Just look at the DDoS attacks. Yeah, look at the DDoS attacks and the ransomware that's going on out there. We've got jobs for a few years left.
Correct. So let's switch a little bit. We've talked about 2020 and forward. Let's talk about, this series is actually talking about what's in your cup. By the way, Mark, do you have your cup over there?
What is in my cup? Well, I told you I was going to think about bringing something else in, but I've got to go with my standby. Okay, I'm kind of a miser, or one of those guys that just a little bit careful with my money. So I've got this is my tea. I do iced tea at work. I get one of these a day. It keeps it cold. Got plenty of ice in there. That's what's in my cup.
That is really nice.
Now, I do have to admit that I've got another cup, too, in case that one breaks, because I'm a good IT professional. I got my backup, my DR plan. So this cup here is also another one. It's very special to me, even though it's just a piece of plastic, all right? So this one is from Oriole Park at Camden Yards for the Baltimore Orioles baseball team. And it's celebrating the 25th anniversary of the baseball stadium. And the story is that, well, first of all, I got this cup there because working at DataBank, I had the blessing of being able to travel around. Nice. And Baltimore was one of those places I travel frequently, so I got to go back and see my team because I'm not in Baltimore. But on the other side of that, being this 25 years, because at the time which this stadium was built in 1992, I went to the very first game that it was ever played, which was a preseason game, the Orioles against the Mets. It was a very cold day in March of 1992, but I went to that game. So I was kind of blessed to keep my and enjoy keeping my cup for memory purposes around here. How's that?
That is nice. I like the two backup, and I made sure also I'm not bringing a cup but a tumbler too. But I'm such a loyalist. I'm bringing my Trend Micro just because.
Now, see, I should have brought my Trend cup, right?
Oh, I know you have one. We'll bring one for you.
I have one.
I remembered yesterday that it is my 21st year in Trend Micro. This is my anniversary month. So I said, why not?
There you go. See, that's a side tangent there, but I one of the things I really like about, so we're part of the Innovis Club, so we can talk honestly here. One of the things I really like about Trend is every single time I talk to somebody from Trend, they're talking about their longevity there. You and I were talking about 3 years ago, just a minute ago with the pandemic, and how a lot of people did change jobs for either because they were forced to or because they were looking for higher wages.
Yep.
But I've been in my role for 8.5, getting close to 9 years as CISO of DataBank, which, yeah, that's unheard of for a CISO to be in the same position,
Exactly.
same company for that period of time. But in this day and age, 21 years, congratulations for being a trend for 21 years. And I know there's people that have been there 30 years and even for probably longer. But that's one of the things I really enjoy about talking with trenders is how long you've been there, because you do, once you get in, you stay.
Yeah, you're getting, you stay. And yeah, I get teary-eyed a little bit, but we always say 20 and proud, right? So we'll continue this route with you. So as we talk about your two fantastic cup, right? So I wonder, Mark, what's in your cup today? When you look at, between now and near term, what's keeping you busy? What are the things that also excites you? You talked about AI earlier, so I want to jump into that as well later.
Yeah, what's not keeping me busy? All right. So I'm in the data center business. I mean, I'm a CISO at DataBank, which is a data center provider. And just not as a commercial, but just so you know, we have 29 different markets, 70 data centers, mostly across the United States. We have a couple in UK and France. But here's the thing that's in my cup and keeping me busy is hyperscaler and artificial intelligence. This whole artificial intelligence boom that has happened within the last year has just been absolutely tremendous. I mean, we predicted large-scale deployments of computers. We predicted that AI and other types of ML and artificial intelligence would rise at a pretty steep rate. But I don't think any of us predicted this. And now we're all, us long timers, are hearkening back to the days of the late 90s when the internet boom happened, and realizing that on the bell curve right now, we're not at the top yet on this AI and artificial intelligence stuff. We're really down at the bottom of it and still taking a steep climb upwards. And so, that's one of the big things that's on my radar right now. But what's interesting is that as a CISO of a data center operator, the application itself is not what I have to secure, because they're not putting that into the cloud. They're not putting that into platform or infrastructure as a service type of environment. They're doing that on a co-location side, meaning they're bringing in their own hardware. My job is to secure that and physically secure that, and making sure that I work with the engineering of facilities and the operations teams to make sure that the data centers are operating in a resilient state, and realizing that now maintaining the power on the data center, the generators and things like that, although not primarily my responsibility, it is a considerable concern. So I have to make sure, like when I'm doing my physical security assessments, we had, previously been, okay, we got multiple generators and they're around. Now we're starting to think, well, what if somebody really, because AI is a cultural threat to some people. Now we're thinking that some people might try and come in and do damage to the physical plant in order to shut down the AI, because they know they can't get into the data center itself. So now we're starting to have to think deeper and be a little bit more aggressive, or what we call red teaming. What could happen against the data center physical plant? What could happen against the substation that's down the street or perhaps across the street? What about the internet lines coming into the facility? I don't have to worry about capacity. I have to worry about, is that handle that's that sub piece that's in the ground, is it properly secured? Because if not, somebody can go open that lid 2 blocks down the street, cut the fiber cable, and all of a sudden I'm having trouble. So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about right now from that perspective. Now, on the pure cybersecurity side of things, if you would have asked me 3 years ago, these two things would have been also on the same list, which is kind of scary that we haven't gotten to a solution for these problems yet. And it's DDoS and ransomware. And quite frankly, DDoS has been a problem for 10 plus years. But it continues to climb. If you look at the statistics, the size of the attacks that are going on and the frequency of the attacks, especially with DDoS as a service where somebody can rent it out, is a challenge. And with all of the uh, for both of those scenarios right now, with all of the geopolitical and economic things that are going on, you've got people who are either aligned with
Hmm.
certain ideologies or certain countries that are willing to, on their own, without the orders of a leader, if you will, to go out and affect these types of activities with a DDoS or a ransomware as a service. Or you got people that are just plain bored that are having fun out there trying to do that. And then, of course, there's
Yeah.
always the gangs, the organized crime, if you will, especially with ransomware, that is
Hmm.
trying to now not just get your money by paying the ransom, but now they're exfiltrating data. They're holding that
Yeah.
as ransom, and usually the ransomware that you see on your server or your computer is the last stage in that ransomware
Correct.
attack scenario.
Hmm.
So these are the three things that are on my radar right now, from the data center, from the cybersecurity perspective. And I never, as an ex-military person, I never take my eyes off the geopolitical pieces, because
Yes.
those aspects have a significant impact upon what happens in my job and what we do.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. I know you will not like what I will say, but it's not from me. They were saying in an article that I haven't forwarded it to you, but I will, that ransomware is going down. So, which is a complete opposite of what you think it is right now, because it's not going down, but it's staying at some point too.
Yeah. So here's where I believe that would be true a year ago. What we so just as a quick thought process. So ransomware a year ago was in fact trending somewhat downward, and that's because
Hmm.
because of the situation in Eastern Europe, there were some folks that were aligned with one country but born in another country, and those two countries were attacking one another. And so then these guys and gals that were doing this stood back and said, wait a minute, where's my allegiance? Who do I go to? And you saw
Hmm.
some breakup of ransomware gangs. And you also saw some law enforcement against ransomware gangs last year and earlier this year. But I can assure you, from all the stats that I've
Hmm.
seen, in fact, I took a look at some stats just last week. Every single month in 2023 has had higher recorded ransomware attacks, except for the month of February, if memory serves right, except for February, has had higher ransomware attacks than year over year, 2022, 2021, and
Yeah.
2020, and even going
Hmm.
back beyond that. And the reason for that is that a lot of these gangs, and this kind of will wrap it up, but a lot of these gangs are reconstituting under new gangs,
Hmm.
and the allegiances are changing and the alliances are changing in regards to that. And
Yeah.
so you are seeing more effective. So, for example, in the last 2 weeks, we saw a healthcare entity in California that has health hospitals in 5 different
Exactly.
states
Yep.
was dramatically impacted by
Hmm.
ransomware.
Yeah.
And you'll see this over and over again. And the interesting thing is the stats that I just shared with you are stats of recorded ransomware instances. There's a belief by one entity, at least, maybe two entities, that
Hmm.
the actual attack level is 1,000% or more greater than what's actually recorded on the
Most likely.
statistics,
Yeah.
because some people are attacked and
They don't report.
they're SMBs, or they don't want to be in the news, so they just either are able to recover their data and take care of it internally, and
Hmm.
therefore it's not an issue, or they choose to deal with it in other means. But what definitely is on the way down, so this is some good news. What's on the way down is the number of businesses that are completely put out of business by ransomware. It seems that
Correct.
people are finally taking notice. And there was one statistic that said that over the last 4 or 5 years, that 40% of businesses who went to get cybersecurity insurance did so and
Hmm.
started taking a better hygienic care of their security environment as a result of that, because the insurance companies are forcing that,
Hmm.
because of one of their competitors or one of their business friends who had been attacked, and they just didn't want to be the next one in the target
Yeah.
list.
Yeah.
There's also hope on the government side. The U.S. Department of Justice successfully been able to infiltrate back earlier this year a couple of the ransomware gangs, and they did it with instead of just infiltrating the gangs, what they did is they went in there and they quietly and covertly became part of the gangs, and then they were taking the encryption keys and they were passing them back through to the attacked companies, so the companies can get their data back and recover without ever having to pay the ransom. I thought that was a pretty ingenious way to do it. So my opinion, based on some of the stats I see, is that ransomware went down last year. It's gone back up this year in astronomical ways, in particular because of some vulnerabilities on software like MoveIt and things along those lines. And the money that's being paid out is still happening. So
yeah, correct. It's like you can do an entire movie for all of this thing, right? So it was interesting.
Right.
So to wrap up, Mark, I know that it's going to be an exciting route moving forward. If you have one suggestion that you can make to your co-Innovis members who are listening today to survive the DDoS, to survive the ransomware, the hyperscale and geopolitical, what one thing that you would probably leave them with?
Yeah. So the checks in the mail, right? So I'm supposed to say trend products here, right?
No, you don't have to.
No. This is open, honest conversation. The one thing that I preach over and over again is product agnostic, to be honest with you. And that is this.
That's true.
Good hygiene will protect your environment anytime and all the time. Okay. Now, is it going to be 100% effective? No, it's not. But here's the deal. Most of these attackers, the ransomware attackers, the DDoS attackers, even the script kiddies that are out there, what they're looking for is a low-hanging fruit. Unless you have some intellectual property, some IP, or you have government-related data that maybe with the F-35 stealth fighter or something along those lines where they're really targeting you for a specific purpose. The attackers that are out there, they're going after healthcare, for example, and things along those lines. They're after targets of opportunity. They don't want to work for this. So what we need to do is we need to remove the opportunities for them to work for this. We need to put the blocks up all over the place that we can. Now, that could be a challenge inside of a business when your leadership hears their CISO saying, lock it down, block it, so on and so forth. So we have to balance the business with the risk, and we have to be able to communicate that balance upward. But bottom line is the hygiene is what's going to save you over and over again.
Correct.
Maybe not 100% of the time, but it's going to save you. And I guarantee you, even if you are attacked, it's going to diminish the impact of the attack, because more than likely, even if you're doing good hygiene, they're still going to attack something that was forgotten, some shadow IT that you weren't aware of. Maybe they're going to hit you with a 0-day type of thing where a patch isn't available yet, or a virtual patch isn't available yet, and those are the hard things to take care of. But if you do good hygiene, you will be much better off than the average bear that's out there.
That's a good one. It's a good way to wrap up because it's non-negotiable, right? Better hygiene is obviously one of the biggest but low-hanging fruit solution that you can get. Mark, super thank you for having you again and again and again with Trend. We appreciate you. And of course, we wish you luck in your business. We're just back here supporting and rallying for you guys.
Right.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Well, thank you.